Hey guys, you are listening to the Absorbcast, and today we are talking about social media management positions. Specifically, we'll go over job descriptions, job expectations, and what to look for as a hiring manager if you are looking to expand your team into the social media management realm. So, a common thing that we see a lot in the creative industry, and seems to be a growing problem, is jobs. And it's people that, or companies at least, that want to hire one person to do the jobs of an entire department. And they expect a lot more out of people that have a single role or someone that like
hmm
specializes in something very specific. They expect them to know a bunch of skills around that specific thing too.
And a place where I see this really happening is social media managers. What is the description of a social media manager?
Someone that manages social media.
Right. So that's what you would think manages it.
Yeah.
But no, people expect them to create the content as well, which I think is fine. But then that varies so much because you can get into animations, then design
Yeah.
alone. And just because
Video.
someone who knows how to create a video is not a good designer. And I can speak for that. Where
And even then, I mean, even in the video industry alone, you have someone who actually records the video. So, like a producer or director or whatever, and then an editor are two separate roles. And
Mhm.
I know a lot of times people that are camera operators will also be editors but I mean, really, that is a very specific role in itself. And
which is way more common nowadays. Like back in the day, there used to be editing houses. You would hire a production crew to shoot your stuff, and then usually as a producer, you would find an editing house to send that footage to. And the people that shot it typically would never have their hands on editing it. Nowadays, you're meant to shoot, edit, manage, and not only that, you have to plan and be strategic. And most of the time, these positions want you to watch analytics and
Yep.
really strategize their marketing team, which is beyond somebody just going to school and learning how to shoot it with a camera. Or you focus all this time into learning how to use a camera and how to create content, how to edit, how to just get it from an idea to an actual video file, and then how to get it to your phone, or if you shoot on your phone, how to get it to social media and that alone, creating a video is just one part of it. But and I say this all the time, creating a good video is not an effective video.
yeah.
Just because it's good, it can look good, but it's got to work.
Yeah.
I'm sidetracking. But
Yeah. But in the social media realm, I mean, that's just one example of like if you want your social channels to grow, you want your following to grow, how do you expect your social media manager to be creating content that is going to resonate with your brand, with your audience, your target audience, and increase that following if they are also responsible
Mhm.
for strategizing and watching analytics and working with marketing, working with an art department, or being those people themselves? If this is a graphic designer and a copywriter and a marketing strategist and a social media manager and
and
a,
it's
a
ridiculous. That's how it
producer and an
is.
editor and all those different things wrapped into one role, like they're not going to be producing great quality that's going to
Mm-mm.
look good for your brand, and your channels won't grow because of it.
No, and I think what happens is these social media managers usually are by themselves, or they have a marketing lead, and they're managing all the content. And usually their person leading them has no idea what they're doing because they were hired to figure all that out on their own. And I think they end up backpedaling by trying to keep up with content because they're trying to do all these things at once. And then if they can keep up with the content, it's not quality content, like you said. And they're wasting time and money just creating quantity over quality, where sometimes quality is going to be better than most of the time. Quality will be better than quantity because a well-targeted ad is going to do better than just 20 crappy social media posts.
Yeah, but I mean, not even just talking about ads in
Yeah.
this case, like we're talking about social media managers,
Mhm.
So I mean, think of it this way. The entire reason that a company will hire a social media manager is because one person in that company does not have enough time to manage all their
Mhm.
social channels. So how do they expect one more person to manage all those things and be responsible for every single piece of that? That's why you have specific people that are specialized in certain areas
Yeah.
within this industry. And that's not to say that people can't have skills in other areas. And I mean, I'm speaking from experience working in Absorb. Like, we have social media managers that are experienced in the video realm or the graphic design realm. So they have skills and they have understanding in different areas, but we don't expect them to work on those things actively.
Mhm.
You know, they can be someone that can collaborate on those and kind of bounce ideas back and forth, but we never expect them to be a designer and a social media manager or an editor or, you know, all these other things. That's the entire reason that we started Absorb, was
I
because
know.
you shouldn't hire one person to do 9 or 10 different jobs.
Exactly. And the social media, we really fell into that and seen a need for that there's
Yeah.
a massive need for it in the industry. If people don't know what they're hiring, they'll just post. And it's ridiculous. I really wish we had some job descriptions as an example, but see, you look up any social media management position and look at the required skills and then compare them amongst other positions asking for the same thing, because the skills are insane. Like there will be specific, like you need animation skills and web development,
Mhm.
but also be able to, create content with a camera, or you'll be, photography skills and animation, or designer and audio podcast engineer. And it's like, well, wait, what? It's insane what they ask for
Yeah.
and what they expect.
And I think a lot of that comes from, one, either people that are hiring for these positions, they don't know what they actually need.
Well, I think that's exactly what it is.
Yeah, so they know that they need someone to manage their social media, but they don't know what that means, you
Mhm.
know? Or two, people that know what they need and just don't write a job description well. Like, they'll pull up job descriptions from other places, and this is where the market has been completely flooded, in
Mhm.
that every single social media management position that you can look up, the job description is so skewed, you know? And it's at the point where, like, if you look up a job description from any company, like right now, you can look up 50 different job descriptions and they're all going to say that you should be a social media manager and a strategist and a designer and a developer, and you need to understand websites and video editing and,
Mhm.
like,
It's almost
all
like
these different
these
things.
companies are trying to compress their entire marketing workflow and department into one job position for one person to do.
But
I,
I think a lot of that is they don't realize that's what they're doing, though.
I don't think they do. I don't think any of it's intentional. I think it's exactly what it is, that they have no idea what they need, but they know they need something.
Yeah.
And they're trying to hire and fill that. They just don't know what to fill that with. They know there's that space in their company they need to fill, and they just don't know what that is.
Yeah.
And they're trying.
And what's crazy to me is social media is not a new thing. And social media
No.
managers are not a new thing. But a lot of these companies are acting like they are, you know? Like, and it's
I think
interesting to see.
I think
Go
it
ahead.
is new in a way of where it's new to it's the realization is new, I
Yeah.
think, where people are realizing like, oh, we need this of companies of other sizes now. I mean, so like you said, it's been around forever, but I think now people are realizing like, wait, we can take. You don't have to be a multi-million-dollar Fortune 500 or Fortune 500 company to be able to have a social media and have that impact with it and be able to manage it. I think other companies are just not catching on. Like, oh wait, we need to start hiring a social media manager, but they don't know what that is.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was starting to get at too, is that I think that this sort of social media management revolution, I guess if you will, is just now hitting like small and medium-sized
Mhm.
businesses. So what we're seeing a lot is a lot of these small, medium-sized, like not quite corporations, not quite like big businesses, or certainly not international businesses, but a lot of these small and medium-sized companies are realizing that they're at the point where they need someone that is dedicated for social media, but they don't know what to look for when they're hiring for that position. And so I think even then, you know, if you don't know what you're looking for whenever you're hiring this position, I would imagine that companies that are hiring social media managers that don't have experience or
Mhm.
don't have a department set up for that yet are going to miss out on really top talent that may actually be very beneficial to them because they are too specific in their
Yeah.
own industry.
Yeah. I 100% agree with that. And I think that, I mean, a lot of these positions don't know what they're hiring, and they may be hiring a first timer. And I think they're
Yeah.
probably worried of how much to invest in this, and they don't know how much is worth their
True.
time, because they probably already have, another marketing team, or a third party marketing team, or an internal marketing team, but no one on social media. And they're looking to have that new person come in and be the expert, which
Yeah.
it probably happens more often than not, that they end up with someone they really don't know how to optimize social media to benefit that company.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. And like we're seeing this with more than just social media jobs too.
Mhm.
Maybe we should do a whole other episode on.
It's the whole creative industry is exploding, and there's tons of opportunity, but it's there's too much opportunity almost, where there's just so much to do where people don't know exactly where to start with what they need to do.
Yeah, it's an interesting position to be in because I'm seeing this as really big companies are hiring for people that are specified, or they're experts in one certain skill, or maybe they have a little bit of skills here and there, but like they really have one thing that they consider themselves an expert on. That's what a lot of times like big companies are looking for. But if you're going into like the startup realm or a smaller medium sized business, they really need someone that is a multi-tool in that sense. And something that is really coming up a lot lately too is what they call T-bar skills. And that's where, if you think about the letter T, if you have like one set of skills that you know absolutely everything about, you're an expert in, but you understand all these skills around that would be considered T-barring in your skills and your expertise. And that's something that a lot of like startup companies look for, is they want someone who can grow, who is an expert in one specific thing, but is able to work hands-on in all these different areas. So it's not necessarily a bad thing, but when it comes to social media management, when you're talking about building a brand and this one person is solely responsible for the reputation of your brand online and talking directly to your potential customers or consumers, like that's huge. You really need someone who really knows what they're doing in that case.
Or a team.
Yeah.
And that, like when you're explaining the T-bar thing, I think that makes total sense. And I think a lot of people start that way, but they don't plan to ever grow it.
Yeah.
And they'll keep one person with those skills and expect them to keep expanding outside of their T, which can only go so far. I think the mindset is to hire that way, a multi-tool, but hire those special tools later, or that multi-tool is going to wear out, and fall apart.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's necessary to have somebody. I get that early on to have one person, but when you start specializing in things, you're going to see, I think you see massive benefits hiring individuals.
Definitely.
And yeah.
Because I mean, when you can start specializing in one specific thing, that's when you are labeled as an expert in that case, and you'll have way more opportunities that come your way if you are specialized in one specific thing. Not to say that you can't expand outside of that, like you can't be interested in anything else, or not, you can't not have skills, I guess, in different areas. But once you are an expert in one specific thing, the opportunities that you get from that will be huge.
What I think is cool too is when you think of social media marketing for it works for a service, brand, product. I mean, it works for everything. And to think like a company like Coca-Cola is using the same playing field that any startup has access to, I think is just so cool.
It is. It's really cool.
It's almost, I mean, I don't want to say it's fair, but it's, you get the same tools starting off. And I just couldn't imagine trying to start selling anything without social media now, like how it used to be. You needed a big startup to try to get on Super Bowl. That's what used to be the big thing, was the Super Bowl commercials.
I've seen it's a meme that's going on in the marketing industry now, that like the Super Bowl commercials are only viewed for marketers now. Like the Super Bowl commercials used to be the huge thing that everyone was like, aspiring to. Like, if you can be on the Super Bowl commercial list for 5 seconds, you pay millions of dollars, sometimes billions of dollars for that. That used to be like the gold standard. And now it's like the only people that tune in to watch Super Bowl commercials are marketers, because they're studying what all these other brands are doing.
And that's insane to think about. I think it was, I don't remember who it was. I heard talking about this. You're talking about like $1 million on a production company to make a commercial for the Super Bowl, to get a spot on the Super Bowl. You have $1 million into that. Now imagine if you took $1 million and invested it into social media teams, social media campaigns. I'm pretty sure you'd probably see a bigger return there.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I would actually love to see a study of that done. Like someone do a Super Bowl ad, try to see what kind of traffic they get or sales, and then do the same budget and run it on social media and see how that compares.
I'm sure there have been studies on that. And the thing is too, man, I feel like we need another episode on just Super Bowl commercials.
Yeah. That's always been a dream of mine, to try to get something, but now it's not. It's not.
So, I don't remember what brand it was, because like I said, we'll have to do a specific episode about this, but just side note, there was a brand, I think it was in last year's Super Bowl in 2022, I think, that they paid for, I think it was like 10 seconds or something. Like it was a very, like the smallest amount of time that you could get for a Super Bowl commercial. And their entire commercial was just a floating QR code. And that was it. Like they did nothing else. They didn't even brand it. It was literally just a QR code that was up for like 10 seconds. And that there was some sort of study that showed that like that got more traffic than anything else because people didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
They just wanted to see
that
what
was
it
so
was.
cool because that was the only one I kept hearing about.
Yeah.
Everyone was talking about that QR code.
Yeah.
And I wonder how it just cracks me up.
Yeah.
How it's all that was.
Yeah. It's crazy. So back on, social media managers, now that we got sidetracked on, the Super Bowl and marketing and all these other great things. But what would you recommend to businesses that need a social media manager or think that they need a social media manager? How would you recommend them approach that?
I don't know. I think it would really depend on, how much they're willing to spend and invest in their social media side. I think the more that you can, I think you're going to get more out of it. I think the more you put in, the more you'll get out. But I think if you can specialize in someone who can create quality content and then someone to manage it, I think if you had to break it down to the most minimal is two positions. I think someone creating and someone managing who's posting. That manager could probably be an editor too. But I think you'd be better off getting someone who can shoot and edit because that's pretty most likely you're going to find someone who's an editor that can shoot or someone who can shoot can edit. But someone who can manage and watch your analytics, I think that's the best way to break that into two parts. If you take that off of someone's plate, like that, the manager doesn't have to make the content and the person making the content doesn't have to manage it. Those are the two biggest roles, I think, in that. If you could split that up, I think just that alone frees up because that person can sit there and keep posting, scheduling posts nonstop while they're scheduling posts. That person's out there shooting and creating more. And you're being probably the most efficient you can be with that time because you're still getting quality and not falling behind. That's what I think I'd recommend.
And that's if someone needs to hire specifically on their team, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Like internal, I think having one person do all that, I think it's tough. I've seen it where it's just, it can be done where it's just someone with their phone and they're constantly active. And, but I think if you really want to step it up and really, really be efficient and pump out quantity and quality, I think break it into either two people and expand those two people into two departments. But I would probably have the person managing it. I'm trying to think of how I'd break that off even more later. I think the person managing probably should pass off the analytic research to someone else, maybe. I don't know. What do you think?
Maybe. So there are social media strategists that's specifically what they do. They'll understand your target audience and watch analytics and tell you when to post and what to post and how to engage with things. And a lot of times that will flood into like influencer marketing as well, which is a whole other industry,
Which I think that position, actually, would you call it a social media
strategist?
I think should work probably above the person create. That was probably how it would work. Like
they could be side by side. I wouldn't necessarily say above. So in a typical, like if you're looking at a corporate hierarchy, like at this point, I'm not talking about small businesses. I'm talking about big businesses. Social media will be under marketing usually. So you would report to like a head of marketing or a VP of marketing, director of marketing, and anybody like that. And they would typically have an entire department underneath social media. So what I've seen is typically they have a project manager that leads the team and they are the ones that coordinate, work with other teams, tell them, like basically act as like a producer sort of role in that case. So the project manager will kind of lead what the social media manager and strategist and then the content team will do inside of that. So the content team would be the people that are video editors, graphic designers. Yeah, well,
that's the ideal situation. Usually a content team.
Exactly. But I mean, if you're talking about on a smaller scale, I think if you have a strategist and a manager, I think that those two people would be able to do a lot for you.
I think those two would be, if you can get someone to shoot who maybe has their own equipment. If not, if you don't have time to learn yourself or invest into the equipment, that would probably be last.
Yeah.
Because that would be, if you have someone who's strategizing, because you can do a lot with your phone. People can.
Yeah.
But it's making sure you're using it right. Like I said, it doesn't have to look good to be effective. And it just because it looks good doesn't mean it's effective.
Yeah. Or you could go the route of hiring a strategist or manager, like choose one of them and then hire a content creator, someone who's just in general aware of, creative content and is able to kind of think outside of the box and produce content for you.
Yeah.
I think that would probably get you the most bang for your buck in that case if you're on a small scale, but it really depends on what kind of content you need and what industry you're in that case.
I think honestly, it's almost like any variation of two people within those two different skills in a creative part of the content creation, whether they're a better shooter, better editor, or they're just really into the analytics and strategy. Just having somebody on each side of that, two people bouncing off creative ideas all the time and they work together, I think is going to be way more beneficial than somebody who on paper is a jack of all trades, master of none, because they're just by themselves. And that's the way it looks, that these places are hiring just a social media manager and they're kind of looking to them for all the answers too. When I think they should, we say building out a team, just two people who can work together to start figuring that out.
Yeah.
I mean, they can still report into somebody else, but hired one person and kind of throwing them in the corner and be like, yeah, run our social media and we better get, so-and-so results by this is.
Yeah. I would say the absolute edge case, like if you have to have a social media manager, like if your business depends on it, you're not going to grow unless you have one, but you don't have the budget for a full team build out like that, or even two people. At the very bare minimum, at least make sure that that is a partner with you, like you are collaborating alongside them. Like don't just leave them and put all that responsibility on them.
No. And I think if you are hiring a social media manager for the first time and you yourself as a small business are new to social media, I think you should be upfront about that and work together with that person. And you play that other role of being the other creative mind and help them figure out what that position is. Because it's not, I can't imagine taking any social media management position right now and them even looking at all the same.
Yeah. And I feel like too, a lot of small, medium-sized businesses don't understand the value of social media. I feel like it's still looked at like it's not a real job,
Well, that's what I was saying. Like with, like it's Coca-Cola. Look at these bigger companies that are using social media because it's now a department in their company and it's important to them. And I would love to see how much of these companies, I'm sure it's on there somewhere, how much they're pouring into social media and take that percentage and look at how much they're making and see how much they're putting into social media and then compare that to your business and think about how much are you investing in social media compared to other successful businesses. And most people probably aren't prioritizing it at all, but the people who are, you can tell.
Yep.
But the whole video side of content creation is also insane. What they expect to do. Like you hire someone who claims to be a DP, director of photography. They know how to light and shoot things and they can make things look pretty. And that's their thing. And they can make some beautiful imagery. They get a job because someone hires them like, that looks awesome. They can create beautiful shots, but they have no idea how to work with audio. And then all of a sudden you have a podcast for your company and you want them to run audio. And it's like, they don't know what to do. And they're going to go, quickly buy something on Amazon. It's going to sound like crap. It may look good, but it's going to sound like crap. I mean, there's things, and vice versa. You can hire someone who's a sound engineer and they don't know how to work with a camera. Yeah. Or someone who is an animator and knows nothing about branding. That's probably a really bad mix right there.
I think so. Yeah.
I'd much rather have someone who understands brand and design, who maybe is learning animation, than just an animator. That could go off the rails quick, I think, without any brand guidelines.
Yeah. I think brand guidelines, again, whole other episode, man. We need to start writing these ideas down while we're talking. But brand guidelines those are just the foundation to every other piece of content in your business. If you don't have brand guidelines and you're expecting a social media manager to produce good content and build a following for you, you got to start with the brand first.
Yeah, you definitely. Like, do you think people should have a brand before jumping on social media?
Oh yeah, yeah,
yeah.
I think so.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I think that makes sense.
When you're talking about your business, you're talking about your brand reputation. You know? Look at any other reputable business that's out there. Their brand is their cornerstone. Like that is everything that they build everything off of for their company. And I mean, there's a whole reason that like brand strategy includes mission, vision, values, tone of voice, like color scheme, like everything. And there's actual psychology and science that goes into creating a brand for a business. So if you don't have any of those things built out and you're expecting someone to create a following and build an audience for you, they're not going to have any direction on what to do or who they're talking to.
Exactly. Yeah. And I can't imagine. I haven't seen anything online with somebody who's hiring a social media manager without a brand would be pretty stupid. Interesting.
I wouldn't say stupid. It'd be interesting.
Well, what about someone who is starting up and they just don't have the budget to hire on someone to help create a brand? What are some
Okay,
Key pillars to keep in mind when trying to come up with your own brand.
All right, if you're a small business that like you're trying to launch and you want to build out a brand, or if you even, man, the most common thing we see is people just want a logo. They don't even know what a brand is.
The logo is the brand.
Logo's not the brand. oh man. But if you're a small business that is launching, 100% go to your local school, your local art college or whatever, and talk to one of the professors and tell them, hey, look, I'm a new business that's starting here. Do you have any students, or do you want to make this a class project? And then boom, already
That's a good idea.
Then right there, like the students they'll have an actual real world project to put in their portfolio. So it's a win-win from them, and you're getting free brand work out of that too.
And it would depend on your business. Now you're getting in front of people. But
exactly,
that could also be good as a startup. I assuming you're starting up. If you're just now looking at a brand and doing something like that, you could start building a relationship with one of those students, and they could be your first employee or first part-time or contractor.
Yeah, absolutely. That would be 100%. Like if I didn't have those brand skills before we started our business, that is absolutely what I would have done. I would have gone to a school, talked to a professor, and been like, "Hey, do you want to make this? You want to make this a class project? Because I need the work, and I assume that your students could use the actual application of working with a client." Because I mean, I did that in design school. We had several local businesses that needed rebrands, or a project that I worked on was a local park that they needed a map redesigned. Like they didn't need a logo or anything, but they needed design work to basically show their map that could be printed in their trail guides and whatever. And so like these are real world clients that I got to work with that got put in my portfolio, and they got free work out of it. Win-win.
Yeah, I never thought of that. That's it. So somebody with probably, if you have as little social media experience, or with whether that's hiring a social media manager or trying to manage your own social media, at least having a brand, you're going to look somewhat polished in some way if you're following your own.
Yeah. And depending on the social media manager that you hire, they should understand brand. Any social media manager should understand the importance of the brand, hands down. But depending on their experience, like how long they've been working in the industry, they may have skills that kind of cross over into that too. Not saying they're brand designers. I would not hire a social media manager to build your brand.
No.
But no. I'm saying
I wouldn't be surprised though if people expect
no, I would not be surprised. But if you're a small business that like maybe you have a logo, but you don't have anything else outside of a brand, and you're at the point where you need someone else to take over your social media, at the bare minimum, a social media manager should be able to look at your logo and create a color palette. Like at least, bare minimum, be able to say like, okay, this is what we're working with going forward. Like even if you don't have that finalized in brand guidelines, at least have some sort of direction moving forward on this is our style.
And I can sympathize with social media managers who end up getting jobs at companies. We had a similar experience with a client, and it was we're not going to go into all that now, but the person in the marketing role wasn't even following their own brand guidelines that we were creating content for. And that was just it. Yeah. I'm just saying, if you get into a social media position and you're working for a company that's not even following any kind of guidelines when it comes to brand, it's probably not a company that you want to stick with.
Yeah. And that's something else too, is if you are a business that you're hiring out social media management, like you're working with an agency or, someone else, make sure that no one else is posting when they are managing, your social accounts.
Yeah.
Because that is something that we've ran into a couple of times, not just once, that, multiple people in the company will have login credentials, which is a normal thing. Like multiple people will have login credentials for your company accounts. But if you are hiring an agency that specializes in social media management, they will have a content strategy and they will have a plan for the content that they are putting out. And if anyone comes in and posts anything random outside of that, it messes up all of your tracking, your analytics, like everything that you're doing.
Yeah, like you're trying to do like A/B testing, and then all of a sudden you got some other variables being thrown in there, and it's like, what? Okay. Yeah.
And it confuses your audience a lot of times too.
Confuses us when we do that.
Yeah, it did. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a story we'll have to tell another time. But,
yeah. So, key takeaways here. So for small businesses that know that they need a social media manager, first thing they need to do is evaluate your own brand. See, do you have at least a logo, bare minimum?
Well, because I think when you look at social media is an extension of your brand. It's out there. It is your brand. So like, If you don't have that in place,
Yeah. So, small businesses, if that is absolute bare minimum, depending on how much experience your social media manager has, I would assume they would come in and ask at least foundational questions of who are we targeting? What do you want them to see?
Mhm.
That sort of thing. And trust your social media manager, full blown, just absolutely trust them 100% of the time.
There's a reason you need to hire that in too.
Exactly. Yeah. And, if you are a little bit bigger than a small business and you know that you need someone else to take over your social media, but you're not really sure where to start, consult with an agency. And, that's something that we do. Trying not to turn this into a sales pitch, but, absorb.
I think we should talk about why we exist and the hole we fill when it comes to social media management.
Okay, well, so the big reason that we even started Absorb is because we saw this happening so often that all these companies were posting very vague creative roles for something that is super specific, but the job description wants them to fill 9 or 10 separate positions. And so we created Absorb to fill that gap specifically. And, with that, we offer monthly subscriptions. So kind of our big selling factor is, you can still pay the essentially salary of a single employee and get 9 or 10 people that are highly trained and specifically experts within that industry to work on your project. It's just managed under the Absorb name.
Yeah. And we build out the points, the team of those experts that are needed specifically for that business or brand.
So for us, the way it works is you would have a free discovery call at first. And that's like step one. You would schedule a discovery call with us. You'd have a meeting with us. We would figure out what your needs are and what your budget is. And then we would come back to you with a few different options for, what type of experts you need and how we would manage them. And then make sure that we are saving you money and, giving you a good return in investment on your own company.
And it's supposed to be as hands-off as possible where it's just stress-free. Take all that off your plate.
Yep.
And it's almost autopilot social media management.
Yep.
I don't want to say autopilot.
No, because
they're involved.
There is an approval process. Yeah. So specifically whenever we manage social media for our clients, we have an approval process in place where we will come up with a content strategy and we will create the guidelines for our creative department to work on. And then we'll pass all of that off to our social media manager. And the software that we use will allow our client to actually go in and approve posts before they go live.
All they got to do is look at it. And if they like it, they like it. If not, it's not posted.
Yep. And everything else is autopilot from that point.
Okay. Well, I think that is it for this one. I want to talk more about it. We'll have to do a second part 2 because there's so much more to go into. Well, we'll talk to you guys later in the next one, the next podcast, the next episode, the next video, or the next audio. So we call podcasts the
blog,
next audio.
The next audio.
What did you say?
Blogs.
The next blog. The next written article.